Now that we're back with our unique coverage of American public opinion, the first order of business is catching up with the 2024 presidential race. A lot's happened since the last time we talked about a hypothetical Trump-Biden rematch. Trump's still running out the last few weeks of his presidential nomination process, which our numbers showed was over a really long time ago. And Biden's still trying to convince people that he's fit to run. Here's a poll we did from a few weeks ago showing that voters think, over time, that Joe Biden is getting less and less mentally sharp. 59% of voters agree with that statement and only 33% disagree. Only 1 out of 3 voters say that Biden's mental acuity isn't declining. But stunningly, that number is only 54% among Democrats. Only 54% of Democrats say that Biden's mental acuity isn't declining. 36% of them acknowledge his mental decline. Now, look at the independent numbers. By over a 2-to-1 margin, independents say Biden is getting less and less mentally sharp over time. Biden has to win those people over, since independents make up about 1/3 of the electorate, so this is not a good sign for him. In the same question set, 61% of voters said it was at least somewhat likely, and 45% said very likely, that the news media are helping cover up evidence of President Biden's declining mental sharpness. Only 36% said not likely, and only 20% said not at all likely. 82% of Republicans say it's likely, as do 62% of independents, and even 39% of Democrats. Only 34% of Democrats say it isn't at all likely the media is covering up Biden's mental decline. I think it's fair to say that all eyes are going to be on Biden's performance during the upcoming State of the Union address. Now, we've been covering this issue since before Biden's term started. Strong majorities of voters have always said that they don't think Joe Biden is physically and mentally up to the job of being president. At this point in his term, it's hard to say there have really been strong ramifications for him because of this issue. His approval rating was all over the place to begin with, but it's been pretty stable in the low to mid 40s. A 70 to 80% chunk of Democrats are happy with his job performance, as well as a pretty stubborn 35% of independents. Here's the problem. Another presidential campaign might just be a bridge too far. We'll have numbers coming next week exploring this topic further. Do Democrats want Biden replaced? And if so, with whom? And the big news is going to be that the front runner to replace him doesn't have nearly the support you'd think if you were just watching the media. But here's the latest Trump-Biden rematch numbers. Trump maintains a strong 6-point lead. This is a pretty good place to be. However, there is 11% of the electorate up for grabs. And these people have a habit of swinging Democrat after the summer. Even so, Trump wasn't solidly leading Biden in 2020 by any means. And he only led Biden in our numbers a couple of times before the election. And it's important to note that our weighting was more favorable to Republicans back then than it is now. Here are the historical numbers, and you can see that despite the swings, Trump has been pretty consistently ahead. Though that one point in time, Biden jumped ahead a year ago, in our opinions, really did represent a particularly low point for Trump. It was after the 2020 Republican underperformance, the Kevin McCarthy mess, and a string of question marks like the NFT announcement. But if you look at the general trend, again, Trump is steadily leading Biden. And if you want more numbers to cement this, here's the overlay of Biden and Trump approval rates. In Trump's term, his approval was consistently about 3 to 5 points higher than Biden's is now. Sometimes you have to step back and take the view from 30,000 feet, and basically, according to our polling, which you're seeing here is about 800,000 polling data points, the country likes Trump as a president about 4 points more than they like Biden as a president. And that's a tough fact for the Biden campaign to come to terms with. It'll be interesting to see the tactics that get used. But here are the numbers that really matter, with Robert Kennedy Jr. in the race. This is the matchup, which currently looks like electoral reality. Trump keeps his 6-point lead over Biden here, and Kennedy takes 12%, taking 4% from other candidate, but also taking 4 points each from both Trump and Biden. Now that's pretty big news at the moment, that Kennedy equally hurts Trump and Biden, since he's ideologically probably closer to being a Democrat. Third-party candidates do have a tendency to underperform in elections, though, so the important thing to see will be who's being most honest. The Trump backers that say they'd vote Kennedy or the Biden backers. Now, that 37% for Biden, though, that's a really bad place to be. We asked this back in the beginning of December, and Kennedy actually did better then than he is now, with a pretty solid 16%. Trump had an 8-point lead over Biden in the same poll. And the real shocker was that 32% for Biden. So he's done the best here in the last 2+ months, though it's possible the December numbers were a bit of an aberration. Maybe we got more free-thinking Democrats in that sample. But let's go to the internal numbers. Trump is leading by leaps and bounds among men, 14 points. But among women, Trump and Biden are tied at this point. What's interesting is without Kennedy, Trump is still leading Biden by 13 points among men and tied among women. So despite his big share of the vote, Kennedy isn't at this point affecting their electoral chances. Now, where it matters is when it gets down to individual states, which we will have more data on in the summer. Trump is also leading among every age group, and this is where Biden gets hurt the most. Trump has a 4-point lead among 18 to 39-year-olds without Kennedy, but a 9-point lead with him. Here are the race numbers, and Biden's winning among black voters as expected, but only 52% of them say they're voting Biden. 19% say Trump, and 14% say Kennedy. Trump leads among Hispanic and other race voters by 14 points, and it's also important to note that Kennedy does best with minority voters. Here are the party numbers, and Trump has a 68-point lead over Biden among Republicans, but Biden only has a 55-point lead over Trump among Democrats. Trump leads Biden by 10 points among independents. So overall, that's a pretty good look at where Biden's structural weakness is coming from. Kennedy only gets 17% of the independent vote, but a pretty solid 12% of the Democrat vote, and only 7% of the Republican vote. It's also pretty fascinating that Biden outperforms Kennedy among Republicans. What can I say? People are just sometimes strange, but expect that kind of signal to tighten up before November. But taking it all in, at this point, things look pretty bad for Biden, at least considering where he was at this point in 2020. But if you flip the script, Biden is actually doing better than Trump was at this point in 2016. But again, the most important thing to see is probably how Democrats deal with mounting concerns about Biden's age and mental acuity. And those concerns exist, as voters have told us over and over again. We're going to be polling 2024 rematches monthly now, so there's going to be a lot more data to discuss. Follow us on YouTube and Twitter, and if you have a moment, go to rasmussenreports.com. There you can sign up for a free daily update of all of our polls, and we'd really appreciate you considering supporting us as a paid reader subscriber. It's only a few bucks a month, and you'll get to see every story we put out. Thanks for watching.